Remember when candy wasn't just sugar, it was childhood?
You can't eat a marathon candy bar fast, Quick Claude. It lasts a good long time.
You'd bike to the corner store with quarters jingling and come back with a paper sack that felt like pure magic.
Bravissimo!
Two great tastes that taste great together. Reese's Peanut Butter Cup. Real milk chocolate. Good old-fashioned peanut butter.
The 1970s created candy legends that kids today will never taste. Most vanished without warning, and the story behind number 7 literally stopped Yankee Stadium. Chocolate babies. What happened to the chewy chocolate candy that made every kid feel rich? Picture yourself in 1972 walking into Murphy's 5 and Dime with your allowance burning a hole in your pocket. Those little chocolate-flavored taffy pieces came in a box that looked like expensive candy but cost just 15 cents. You'd bite into each one slowly, savoring that unique chocolate molasses flavor that somehow tasted different from any other candy on the shelf. The texture was perfect, not too hard, not too soft, with just enough chew to make them last. Mrs. Patterson behind the counter always smiled when kids bought these because she knew they'd be back next week. By 1983, they disappeared from shelves without explanation, leaving an entire generation wondering what happened to their childhood favorite. Modern parents searching for these online discover only empty Amazon listings and nostalgic forum posts from people who remember exactly how they tasted. Wacky Packages Gum. Who remembers when gum came with stickers that were funnier than Saturday morning cartoons? Every pack was a gamble. You never knew if you'd get Quisp Cereal or Blisterine mouthwash, parodies that made you laugh until your sides hurt. The gum itself was nothing special, standard pink squares that lost flavor in about 3 minutes. But nobody bought these for the gum. Kids traded stickers like they were stock certificates. Certain combinations could get you the best baseball cards or comic books from other kids. Teachers confiscated them faster than anything else because they knew once these stickers came out, no learning was happening for the rest of the day. The artwork was so detailed and clever that many kids kept collections for years, carefully stored in shoeboxes under their beds. Tops stopped making them in the early 80s when parent groups complained about the parodies being inappropriate for children. Today, mint condition stickers sell for hundreds of dollars on eBay, but the magic of opening that first pack and seeing something that made you genuinely laugh out loud, that's something you can never buy back. Marathon bars. What made this candy bar feel like it lasted forever, even though you devoured it in minutes? Picture unwrapping that distinctive red package to reveal 8 inches of braided caramel covered in milk chocolate, looking more like a candy rope than a traditional bar. The genius was in the eating experience. You couldn't just bite through it like a Snickers or Milky Way. You had to work for every piece, either biting carefully or letting it soften in your mouth until you could separate each caramel strand. Kids developed their own techniques, some preferring to eat the chocolate coating first, others starting from one end and working methodically toward the other. The advertising slogan, "It's so long it lasts a long time," wasn't marketing fluff. It was actually true. During long car trips, one marathon bar could keep you occupied for 20 minutes or more, making it a parent favorite for road trips and movie theaters. Mars discontinued it in 1981, claiming production costs were too high for the complicated braiding process. British kids still get something similar called Curly Whirly, but Americans lost this unique candy experience forever. The disappointment of reaching for a marathon bar at the corner store and finding empty shelf space marked an end of childhood for many 70s kids. Zotz. How did a candy that exploded in your mouth become every kid's secret weapon for shocking friends? The outside looked innocent enough, just a hard candy shell in cherry, apple, or orange flavors that seemed ordinary until you bit through to the center. Then came the surprise. Fizzing powder that made your mouth feel like a science experiment gone wild, complete with crackling sounds and a tingling sensation that lasted for minutes. Smart kids learned to keep these secret until the perfect moment, usually during lunch period when they could get maximum audience reaction from unsuspecting friends. The first bite always caught people off guard. Their eyes would widen as the fizzing started. Then they'd either love it or hate it with no middle ground. Teachers banned them from most classrooms after too many kids disrupted lessons with unexpected crackling sounds and surprised yelps. The chemistry behind Zotz was simple but brilliant. Citric acid and sodium bicarbonate created the fizzing reaction when mixed with saliva, but the timing and intensity felt like pure magic to young minds. Production stopped in the mid-1980s when insurance concerns arose about kids potentially choking on the fizzing powder. Modern pop rocks provide similar fizzing, but the controlled explosion of a Zotz hitting your tongue at exactly the right moment created a candy experience that no other confection has successfully replicated. Bonkers. What happened to the candy that promised to bonk you out with flavor so intense it required a warning? Each rectangular piece was packed with fruit flavor so concentrated that the first bite made your face scrunch up involuntarily, followed by a wave of sweetness that somehow balanced the initial shock. The advertising campaign featured people getting literally bonked on the head after eating one, suggesting the flavor was so powerful it could knock you unconscious. And honestly, the intensity lived up to the hype. Kids would dare each other to eat multiple pieces at once, knowing that anything more than two could overwhelm your taste buds for the rest of the day. The texture was perfect for the experience, firm enough that you had to commit to each bite, but soft enough that the flavor burst immediately when you bit down. Cherry was the most popular flavor, followed by grape and orange, each one engineered to deliver maximum impact in minimal time. Freshen-Up Gum. Who else remembers the gum that literally exploded with liquid flavor the moment you bit down? The marketing promised the gum that goes squirt, and unlike most advertising claims, this one delivered exactly what it advertised. Each piece looked ordinary from the outside, just standard rectangular gum in a simple wrapper. But the center contained a small pocket of flavored liquid that burst with your first bite. The timing had to be perfect. Bite too gently and nothing happened. Bite too hard and the liquid shot out before you could enjoy it, sometimes hitting whoever was sitting across from you. Kids learned the proper technique through trial and error, developing the perfect bite pressure to release the liquid slowly while keeping it contained in their mouth. The flavors were intense but brief. The liquid would mix with your saliva and disappear within seconds, leaving behind regular gum that lost its novelty quickly. Reggie Jackson Bar. What made this candy bar so special that its launch literally stopped a Yankees game? Picture October 1978. Yankee Stadium packed with 56,000 fans celebrating their World Series championship when thousands of Reggie bars came raining down from the stands like confetti made of chocolate and peanuts. The bar itself was a masterpiece of 70s candy engineering. Chunks of roasted peanuts suspended in buttery caramel, all covered in milk chocolate that somehow managed to stay intact despite the chunky interior. What made it legendary wasn't just the taste, though that combination of salty peanuts, sweet caramel, and smooth chocolate was admittedly perfect for baseball games and after-school snacks. The real magic was in the story. Reggie Jackson, Mr. October himself, had his own candy bar, making every kid who bought one feel connected to baseball greatness. Choco Lite. How did a candy bar that promised to be lighter than air become heavier than gold in collectors' hearts? The concept was revolutionary for its time. Milk chocolate whipped with air bubbles to create a texture that felt like eating sweet foam, completely different from the dense, heavy candy bars that dominated store shelves. Each bite literally melted in your mouth faster than you could chew it, creating an almost ethereal candy experience that left you wondering if you'd actually eaten anything at all. The wrapper promised the incredible lightness of chocolate, and for once, advertising copy-matched reality perfectly. These bars weighed about half as much as regular candy bars despite being the same size. Kids loved them because they felt like cheating somehow, getting a full-size candy bar that disappeared so quickly you could convince yourself it didn't really count as eating candy. Space food sticks. What happened to the candy that promised to fuel your astronaut dreams while actually tasting better than real space food? Picture yourself in 1975, unwrapping what looked like a brown crayon, but delivered flavors that somehow made processed food taste like the future. These weren't just candy. They were nutritionally balanced energy snacks that came in chocolate, peanut butter, and caramel flavors, each one packed with vitamins and minerals that parents actually approved of. The texture was unlike anything else in the candy aisle, dense and chewy, but not sticky, with a consistency that held together perfectly whether you were eating it in your bedroom or imagining yourself floating in zero gravity. Kids would pack them for school lunches, camping trips, and backyard space missions, convinced they were eating the exact same food that real astronauts consumed in orbit. The packaging reinforced the space theme with silver foil wrappers and graphics that looked like they came straight from NASA's design department, making every snack feel like preparation for lunar exploration. What made them special wasn't just the space connection. They actually tasted good, with rich flavors that satisfied hungry kids while providing enough nutrition that parents didn't feel guilty about the sugar content. The chocolate version became legendary among kids who discovered that freezing them created an even better texture, like eating chocolate-flavored moon rocks that gradually warmed and softened in your mouth. Pillsbury discontinued them in the early 1980s when the space program lost public interest and production costs for the specialized nutritional formula became prohibitive. Lik-M-Aid Fun Dip. How did a candy that was essentially flavored sugar with a sugar stick become the most addictive treat in every corner store? The concept was brilliant in its simplicity. Packets of colored, flavored powder that you consumed using an edible white sugar stick, creating an interactive candy experience that kept kids engaged far longer than traditional sweets. Each packet contained 3 different flavored powders, usually cherry, grape, and lime, along with one lick-a-stick that served as both spoon and additional candy. The ritual was half the fun. Lick the stick, dip it into your chosen flavor, then enjoy the burst of concentrated sweetness while the stick slowly dissolved in your mouth. Smart kids learned to alternate between flavors and to save the best powder for last, often extending a single fun dip session for 30 minutes or more. The flavors were intentionally intense, designed to create that perfect pucker-then-sweet sensation that kept you coming back for another dip before the first one had fully dissolved. Teachers and parents quickly learned to spot fun dip consumers by their brightly colored tongues and the telltale white powder residue around their mouths, creating a generation of kids who looked like they'd been fingerprinted with sugar. The stick innovation solved the eternal problem of how to consume pure flavored sugar without making a mess, though plenty of kids still managed to spill powder everywhere despite the built-in delivery system. Certs Mints. What made these breath mints with the hole in the middle feel more like candy than medicine? Each mint featured a distinctive center hole that wasn't just decorative. It actually affected how the mint dissolved on your tongue, creating a unique texture experience that set them apart from solid breath mints. The flavors were intense but clean, providing genuine breath-freshening power while still tasting sweet enough that kids actually wanted to eat them. Unlike other mints that felt medicinal, Certs struck the perfect balance between functional breath improvement and candy satisfaction. The advertising slogan, "Certs is a candy mint," captured exactly what made them special. They occupied a unique position between breath mints and actual candy. Parents appreciated the dual functionality, while kids loved that they could improve their breath while getting a legitimate sweet treat. The center hole created interesting eating techniques. Some people let them dissolve naturally, others crunched through them quickly, and creative eaters learned to whistle through the holes before consumption. Wax bottles. Who else remembers the candy that taught an entire generation that sometimes the packaging was more interesting than the contents? These tiny wax bottles filled with flavored syrup represented pure novelty in candy form, requiring kids to bite off the wax top and drink the liquid inside, creating an interactive experience unlike any other sweet treat available. The wax itself was surprisingly satisfying to chew, with a texture somewhere between gum and silly putty that kept your jaw busy long after the syrup had been consumed. Each bottle contained maybe a teaspoon of liquid, just enough to deliver a burst of artificial fruit flavor that was gone almost before you realized it had started, making the chewing wax the real entertainment value. Kids learned different techniques for consumption. Careful biters who preserved the bottle shape, aggressive chewers who demolished them immediately, and strategic savers who tried to make both the liquid and wax last as long as possible. The flavors were basic but intense, usually cherry, blue raspberry, and green apple, with colors so bright they looked like they belonged in a chemistry set rather than a candy display. What made them educational was the texture exploration they provided, introducing kids to the concept that food could be about experience rather than just taste, expanding young palates beyond traditional candy expectations. Teachers often found classroom floors littered with colorful wax chunks, evidence of successful candy consumption that somehow felt more acceptable than traditional candy wrappers. Quisp Cereal. What happened to the breakfast cereal that tasted more like candy than nutrition and made Saturday mornings feel like dessert? This wasn't technically candy, but Quisp delivered sweetness levels that made it indistinguishable from sugary treats, creating breakfast experiences that kids approached with candy-eating enthusiasm. The corn and oat pieces were shaped like flying saucers, connecting with 1970s space fascination while providing maximum sugar-coating surface area that made milk turn into sweet cereal soup. The mascot was Quisp, an alien character who battled Quake in television commercials that became more entertaining than many Saturday morning cartoons, creating cultural phenomena that extended far beyond breakfast consumption. Parents reluctantly allowed it because it technically qualified as breakfast food, though everyone understood it was essentially candy disguised as nutrition with minimal protein or vitamins. The texture was perfectly engineered for extended eating, crunchy enough to provide satisfaction, but not so hard that it hurt young mouths, creating ideal cereal-eating experiences that could last through entire cartoon blocks. Chick-O Stick. How did a candy that looked like it belonged in a pet store become one of the most addictive treats in Southern convenience stores? The combination was deceptively simple. Crunchy peanut butter and toasted coconut rolled into finger-sized sticks that delivered an incredibly satisfying texture contrast with every bite. What made them special wasn't any single ingredient, but rather the perfect ratio of sweet coconut to salty peanut butter, creating a balance that kept you reaching for another piece before you'd finished chewing the first. The texture was crucial to their appeal. The outside provided initial crunch that gave way to a softer interior, but never became sticky or difficult to chew, maintaining perfect consistency from first bite to last. Southern kids grew up considering them a regional delicacy, something special you could only get at certain stores, creating a sense of local pride around a candy that most of the country had never heard of. The name itself was memorable enough to stick in your mind. Chick-O Stick had a rhythm and playfulness that made it fun to say, helping word-of-mouth marketing spread among kids who loved sharing their candy discoveries. Unlike many peanut butter candies that were either too sweet or too salty, Chick-O Sticks achieved that perfect middle ground that satisfied cravings without overwhelming your taste buds or leaving you feeling like you'd eaten too much. The coconut wasn't the sweetened variety found in most candies, but rather toasted flakes that added a subtle nuttiness and crunch that complemented rather than competed with the peanut butter flavor. Gas station attendants and convenience store clerks throughout the South knew exactly what kids meant when they asked for those yellow stick things, creating a shared cultural reference that bonded candy lovers across state lines. Astro Pops. What made these rocket-shaped lollipops feel like edible space missions that lasted longer than most NASA launches? The engineering was remarkable for candy in the 1970s. 3 distinct layers of flavored hard candy molded into a perfect rocket shape, complete with a pointed tip and wider base that made them look like miniature spacecraft ready for launch. Each Astro Pop delivered 3 different flavors as you worked your way from tip to base, usually progressing from cherry to passion fruit to pineapple, creating a flavor journey that changed as you consumed it. The pointed tip required careful licking technique. Too aggressive and you'd create sharp edges that could cut your tongue. Too gentle and you'd never make progress, teaching kids patience and strategy in their candy consumption. What set them apart from regular lollipops was the commitment required. These weren't quick candy experiences, but rather extended sessions that could last an hour or more if you paced yourself properly. What set them apart from regular lollipops was the commitment required. These weren't quick candy experiences, but rather extended sessions that could last an hour or more if you paced yourself properly. The rocket shape wasn't just aesthetic. The pointed design concentrated flavors at the tip, while the wider base provided different surface area for varied licking experiences, creating textural variety within a single piece of candy. Kids developed personal techniques for optimal consumption, some preferring to rotate them methodically to maintain the rocket shape, others attacking one side until they could bite off chunks. Each approach creating different flavor release patterns. The space theme connected perfectly with 1970s cultural fascination with NASA and space exploration, making kids feel like astronauts while they consumed what felt like freeze-dried space rations in candy form. Nelson Candy Company created them specifically to capitalize on space race excitement, and the marketing worked perfectly. Kids genuinely felt like they were participating in space exploration with every lick. Bottle caps. How did candy designed to look like soda bottle caps become more addictive than the beverages they were imitating? The concept was brilliant. Small, round candies, shaped exactly like metal bottle caps, complete with ridged edges and authentic-looking graphics that made them almost indistinguishable from real soda caps at first glance. Each piece delivered the concentrated essence of popular soda flavors: Coca-Cola, Orange Crush, Cherry 7-Up, and root beer, compressed into tablet form that dissolved slowly on your tongue. The genius was in the flavor accuracy. These actually tasted like their soda counterparts, not generic fruit flavors with soda names, creating an authentic beverage experience in solid candy form. Kids loved the novelty of eating what looked like bottle caps, and the realistic appearance often fooled adults into thinking children were putting actual metal caps in their mouths, creating harmless pranks that never got old. The size was perfect for sharing and trading. Small enough that you could carry dozens in your pocket, but substantial enough that each piece provided a satisfying candy experience that lasted several minutes. What made them educational was learning to identify soda flavors by taste alone, developing palate recognition skills while consuming candy that parents actually approved of because it seemed less harmful than drinking actual soda. Sugar Daddy. What happened to the candy that required genuine commitment and jaw strength, becoming a rite of passage for serious candy consumers? These weren't just caramel pops. They were endurance tests disguised as treats, requiring sustained chewing effort that could occupy a determined child for 30 minutes or more. The caramel was engineered to be incredibly firm when cold, but gradually softened with body heat and saliva, creating a candy experience that evolved as you consumed it, starting nearly rock-hard and ending as manageable, chewy sweetness. What made Sugar Daddy legendary wasn't just the flavor, which was rich, buttery caramel that intensified as you worked through each pop, but the genuine accomplishment you felt when you finally finished one without giving up or breaking a tooth. Kids learned that technique mattered. Aggressive chewing led to sore jaws and potential dental emergencies, while patient licking and gradual warming produced the most satisfying results and the longest-lasting candy experience available anywhere. The stick design was crucial, providing leverage and control that made the extended consumption process manageable, while also preventing the mess that would have resulted from trying to eat such sticky candy without a handle. Screaming yellow Zonkers. What happened to the caramel-coated popcorn that came in boxes designed to grab attention from across any store? The bright yellow packaging was impossible to ignore, featuring psychedelic graphics and bold typography that made it look more like a rock concert poster than a snack food container. Each box contained buttery popcorn covered in sweet caramel coating that achieved the perfect balance between salty and sweet, creating addictive flavor combinations that kept people reaching for more. The name itself was memorable and slightly rebellious for its time, appealing to kids who wanted snacks that felt edgy and different from their parents' boring food choices. The texture was engineered for maximum satisfaction. The caramel coating provided initial sweetness, while the popcorn delivered satisfying crunch that made eating it feel like consuming two different snacks simultaneously. What made them special was the quality of both components: real butter flavoring in the popcorn and genuine caramel rather than artificial sweeteners, creating premium taste experiences at reasonable prices. The packaging size was perfect for sharing during movies or television watching, though many people discovered that sharing was difficult once they started eating because the flavor combination was genuinely addictive. Candy cigarettes. What happened to the controversial candy that taught kids how to look cool while rotting their teeth? These chalk-white sticks of compressed sugar were designed to look exactly like real cigarettes, complete with realistic packaging that mimicked popular tobacco brands, creating a candy experience that was equal parts sweet treat and social commentary. The texture was unique in the candy world, powdery and soft enough to bite through easily, but firm enough to maintain their cigarette shape throughout consumption, allowing kids to smoke them dramatically before eating the evidence. Each box contained 20 individually wrapped pieces that looked disturbingly authentic when held between fingers, creating photo opportunities that would horrify modern parents but seemed perfectly normal in the tobacco-accepting culture of the 1970s. Kids developed elaborate smoking pantomimes around candy cigarettes, practicing the gestures and poses they saw in movies and television, turning candy consumption into performance art that prepared them for potential future tobacco use. The flavors were intentionally mild, usually vanilla or mint, designed not to overpower, but rather to provide subtle sweetness that enhanced the smoking role play without creating the intense flavor experiences associated with traditional candy. Kaboom Cereal. Picture: Saturday mornings when breakfast tasted like candy and parents hadn't yet discovered nutrition labels. Kaboom wasn't technically candy, but those star-shaped pieces delivered sugar levels that made milk turn rainbow colors, transforming ordinary breakfast into psychedelic food experiences. Each bowl contained enough artificial coloring to paint a small fence, creating milk that shifted through blues, pinks, and purples as you ate. The clown mascot promised explosive flavor, and the cereal delivered with concentrated sweetness that made kids bounce off walls before 9 a.m. Parents tolerated it because it technically qualified as breakfast food, though everyone understood it was essentially candy masquerading as nutrition. The pieces were engineered to maintain crunch in milk longer than most cereals, allowing extended eating sessions that could last through entire cartoon blocks. Kids often ate it dry as after-school snacks, treating individual pieces like small candies that provided concentrated sugar hits without requiring bowls or cleanup. General Mills discontinued it in the early 1980s when the breakfast cereal market shifted toward healthier options, and parents began demanding actual vitamins instead of pure sugar delivery systems. The loss eliminated one of the few breakfast foods that kids genuinely craved, ending an era when morning meals could legitimately compete with candy stores for pure sweetness and artificial coloring intensity. Satellite wafers. How did candy that looked like communion wafers filled with tiny sugar beads become an obsession for kids who loved unusual textures? The outer shell was made from the same edible rice paper used in actual religious ceremonies, creating an almost ethereal eating experience that dissolved instantly on your tongue, releasing hundreds of tiny colored sugar pellets that provided the real candy satisfaction. Each UFO-shaped wafer contained a different combination of colored beads. Some were all one color, others mixed multiple colors in patterns that made opening each one feel like unwrapping a small surprise gift. The texture contrast was remarkable. The paper shell offered no resistance whatsoever, literally melting away the moment it touched saliva, while the inner beads provided satisfying crunch and sweetness that lasted much longer than the wrapper. Prized as simple novelty. The space theme connected with 1970s fascination with UFOs and space exploration, making kids feel like they were consuming actual extraterrestrial technology rather than cleverly packaged sugar products. Teachers appreciated that the paper wrapper eliminated classroom litter, while the quiet consumption process meant they could be eaten during activities that required concentration and minimal disruption. Necco Company produced them throughout the decade as part of their specialty novelty line, but the complex manufacturing process that combined edible paper production with precision bead filling made them expensive to produce relative to simpler candy alternatives. What made them truly special was the surprise factor. Never knew exactly how many beads would be inside each wafer or what color combinations you'd discover, creating an element of chance that kept the candy experience fresh and exciting. The rice paper technology was actually quite advanced for its time, requiring specialized equipment and expertise that few candy manufacturers possessed, making satellite wafers a genuinely unique product that competitors couldn't easily replicate. Children who grew up eating them often remembered them as among their most distinctive candy experiences, not necessarily because they were the most delicious, but because they provided sensory experiences unavailable anywhere else in the candy world. Discontinuation in the early 1980s eliminated one of the few candies that successfully combined novelty, education, and genuine textural innovation, ending an era when candy manufacturers were willing to invest in complex production processes to create truly unique consumer experiences. Now and later happened to the candy that promised immediate satisfaction but delivered extended commitment. Each small square looked innocent enough until that first bite revealed incredibly firm taffy that required genuine jaw strength and patience. The deception was brilliant. These weren't soft chews, but endurance tests disguised as candy, creating experiences that lasted 15 minutes of dedicated chewing. Smart kids learned to warm them first, while aggressive biters discovered painful lessons about respecting candy that fought back. The colors were so vibrant they stained tongues and teeth, creating telltale signs of consumption visible across any playground. Parents appreciated that one piece could occupy children for extended periods, though they worried about the dental implications of such sustained hard chewing. Phoenix Candy Company engineered them specifically to be challenging, appealing to kids who wanted candy experiences that required effort and provided lasting satisfaction rather than quick sugar hits. Teachers banned them because students' chewing, now and laters, were completely useless for learning. Their attention entirely focused on managing the challenging candy rather than academic subjects. The trading value was significant. These commanded respect and could be exchanged for multiple pieces of easier candy, creating economies where effort translated into social currency. Modern challenging experience that made the originals feel like candy achievement tests. Ding-dong devil dogs. How did these cream-filled chocolate cakes bridge the gap between candy and legitimate dessert while somehow being more satisfying than either? Each individually wrapped cake consisted of 2 genuinely moist chocolate layers sandwiching perfect vanilla cream filling, transcending typical snack cake limitations through engineering that prioritized taste over shelf stability. The cream-to-cake ratio was carefully calculated to ensure every bite contained perfect balance, eliminating the disappointing bites of pure cake or overwhelming cream that plagued competitors. Distinctive foil packaging created instant visual recognition, making them cultural symbols among kids who understood quality. Parents appreciated that they were substantial enough to qualify as legitimate snacks rather than empty calories, while kids loved that they satisfied dessert cravings without requiring special occasions. Size was perfectly calibrated, large enough for genuine satisfaction, small enough to avoid guilt, demonstrating sophisticated portion engineering that modern snack foods rarely achieve. Hostess maintained quality standards throughout the 1970s that justified higher prices than generic alternatives, prioritizing cost over taste. School cafeterias sometimes offered them as dessert options, legitimizing them as actual food rather than mere candy. Manufacturing consolidation eventually led to recipe changes prioritizing shelf life over the taste qualities that made the originals genuinely special, ending production of snack cakes that actually deserved their popularity. Charleston Chew. What made this nougat candy bar the ultimate test of dental integrity in the American candy landscape? The texture was incredibly firm nougat that could break teeth if approached aggressively, but gradually softened with patient warming to become manageable chewy candy, providing extended satisfaction. Each bar was substantial and dense, promising significant chewing exercise that could occupy dedicated consumers for 30 minutes of sustained effort. Smart kids learned to warm them in pockets before eating, while aggressive biters learned painful lessons about candy that fought back. The name suggested sophistication and regional pride connecting to Southern charm that made eating them feel cultural rather than merely consuming sugar. Parents appreciated that one bar could keep children occupied for extended periods, but worried about dental implications and potential tooth damage from improper technique. Nathan Sloan Company capitalized on their unique position as candy, requiring genuine physical effort, appealing to kids who wanted sweets that provided challenge along with sweetness. Teachers banned them for multiple reasons: the noise when kids bit through them, the extended consumption time that eliminated attention for learning, and potential emergency dental situations. Successfully consuming one earned peer respect while giving up demonstrated weakness, creating candy-based hierarchies reflecting broader childhood social structures. Production costs and liability concerns about dental damage eventually led to reformulations eliminating the signature toughness that made them special. Razzles. What happened to the revolutionary candy that promised to be both candy and gum in one product? The concept was ambitious. Start as hard candy with intense fruit flavors, then transform into chewing gum through sustained chewing, creating 2 completely different experiences. Each piece began as a brightly colored tablet delivering concentrated flavor so intense it made your eyes water, followed by magical transformation as chewing converted dissolved candy into actual gum. The chemistry seemed like pure magic to 1970s kids. How could hard candy become chewing gum without visible ingredient changes? The reality was sophisticated food science combining candy ingredients with gum base in ratios, allowing candy coating to dissolve while revealing chewing gum beneath. Each piece provided distinct experiences. 3 minutes of intense candy flavor, followed by 15 minutes of moderate gum chewing, creating extended value, justifying premium prices. Surprise factor never diminished. Even kids who had eaten hundreds still found the transformation remarkable, creating sustained novelty lasting far longer than traditional candies. The Fleer Corporation engineered them as premium novelty products, recognizing dual functionality justified higher prices than single-purpose alternatives. The marketing slogan, "First it's candy, then it's gum," was perfectly accurate, establishing trust that sustained sales throughout the decade. Production challenges maintaining precise balance between candy satisfaction and gum functionality eventually made the complex manufacturing process economically unviable, ending an era when candy makers invested in complex engineering for truly novel eating experiences. Necco Wafers. How did these chalk-like discs become America's most polarizing candy that people either loved obsessively or avoided completely? Each roll contained 8 different flavors pressed into thin, round wafers that dissolved slowly on your tongue, creating extended candy experiences that required patience and appreciation for subtle sweetness. The texture was unique. Not quite hard candy, not quite soft, but something in between that felt almost medicinal until the flavors emerged. Kids developed elaborate consumption rituals, some eating them in color order, others saving their favorites for last, creating personal ceremonies around candy that looked like communion wafers. The flavors were distinctive but mild: lemon, lime, orange, clove, cinnamon, wintergreen, licorice, and chocolate, each one delivering authentic taste rather than the intense artificial flavoring that characterized most children's candy. What made them educational was learning to appreciate subtlety in sweetness, developing palate sophistication that prepared young taste buds for more complex flavor experiences later in life. Parents approved because they seemed wholesome and old-fashioned, more like medicine than candy, though kids understood they were getting genuine sweet satisfaction disguised as virtue. The New England Confectionery Company produced them consistently for over 150 years, creating multi-generational loyalty that sustained sales despite their polarizing nature among casual candy consumers. Teachers appreciated that they were virtually silent to consume and lasted long enough to keep kids occupied during quiet activities without creating hyperactivity. The individual wrapper elimination made them environmentally friendly before environmental consciousness became mainstream, demonstrating forward-thinking packaging that prioritized function over flash. What made these chewy, honey-flavored pieces with almond bits the perfect candy for extended satisfaction and dental workout? Each individually wrapped piece combined honey-flavored taffy with real almond pieces, creating texture contrasts that kept your mouth interested throughout the extended chewing process. The honey flavor was authentic rather than artificial, providing natural sweetness that felt healthier than typical candy, while still delivering the satisfaction kids craved. The almond bits weren't just decoration. They provided crucial textural elements that prevented the taffy from becoming monotonous, creating varied chewing experiences within single pieces. Smart kids learned that letting them warm slightly in your mouth before chewing made consumption easier, while impatient eaters struggled with the challenging texture that could stick to dental work. Parents appreciated that they contained real honey and almonds, making them feel like wholesome treats rather than pure sugar delivery systems, though dentists warned about the prolonged chewing and sticky texture. The Shutter-Johnson Company engineered them for extended consumption, recognizing that some candy lovers wanted experiences requiring time and effort rather than instant gratification. Each piece provided substantial chewing satisfaction that could last 10 minutes or more, making them economical choices for kids with limited candy allowances. The honey theme connected with natural health trends that were beginning to emerge in the 1970s, positioning them as more wholesome alternatives to artificial candy options. Teachers sometimes allowed them during quiet activities because they kept kids occupied without creating noise or hyperactive behavior, though cleanup became challenging when pieces got stuck to desks and chairs. The genius of Bit-O honey lay in its dual nature. It was simultaneously candy and endurance test, treating young mouths to extended satisfaction while teaching valuable lessons about patience and persistence. The honey-flavored taffy base wasn't the overly sweet artificial variety that dominated most candy aisles, but rather a more complex sweetness that reminded kids of actual bee products their grandparents might have kept in kitchen pantries. This authenticity made parents feel better about purchasing what was essentially sticky candy, though the dental challenges it created were very real. Orthodontists throughout the decade learned to recognize the telltale signs of Bit-O honey consumption. Taffy residue carefully wedged around brackets and wires that required professional removal. The almond pieces weren't uniformly distributed throughout each piece, creating an element of surprise that kept the chewing experience interesting. Some bites delivered multiple almonds that provided substantial textural contrast, while others contained minimal nuts that allowed the honey flavor to dominate. This variability meant that no two Bit-O honey experiences were identical, encouraging repeat purchases from kids who wanted to experience different ratios of honey to almond in their next piece. The social dynamics around Bit-O honey were complex and revealed much about childhood hierarchies and patience levels. Kids who could successfully consume entire pieces without losing their composure or getting sticky fingers earned respect from peers who struggled with the challenging texture. The candy became a sort of unofficial endurance test, with successful consumption demonstrating both jaw strength and strategic thinking about when and how to approach such demanding treats. Some children developed elaborate techniques for optimal consumption, warming pieces in coat pockets during winter months, carefully separating almond bits from taffy, or consuming them in specific sequences that maximized flavor while minimizing dental trauma. These techniques were closely guarded secrets, passed down from older siblings or discovered through painful trial and error experiences that taught lasting lessons about candy strategy. The wrapper design was practical but uninspiring, focusing on functionality rather than flashy graphics that characterized many competing candy products. This understated packaging actually worked in the candy's favor, suggesting quality and wholesomeness that parents appreciated while allowing the product itself to create lasting impressions rather than relying on marketing gimmicks. The individual wrapping was crucial for maintaining texture and preventing the pieces from sticking together in warm conditions, though it also created significant waste that environmentally conscious consumers would later criticize. Each wrapper removal became a small ritual, building anticipation for the challenging chewing experience ahead while providing a final moment to consider whether you really had the time and jaw strength for what was about to unfold in your mouth. Wax lips. How did candy that you couldn't actually eat become one of the most memorable novelty treats of the decade? These oversized red lips made from flavored wax provided hours of entertainment value through wearing rather than consuming, creating candy experiences focused on fun rather than flavor. The wax was technically edible but essentially flavorless, designed for chewing rather than swallowing, teaching kids that candy could be about experience rather than taste satisfaction. What made them legendary was the transformation they provided. Shy kids became comedians. Quiet children turned into performers, demonstrating how novelty candy could change personalities and create social opportunities. The bright red color was so distinctive that wearing them created instant visual impact, making every child feel like they were participating in elaborate costume play disguised as candy consumption. Parents appreciated that they contained minimal sugar and lasted indefinitely, providing extended entertainment value that justified the novelty pricing and created memories lasting far longer than typical candy experiences. The wax chewing provided legitimate jaw exercise while the wearing aspect encouraged imaginative play, combining physical activity with creative expression in ways that traditional candy couldn't match. Teachers had mixed reactions. The entertainment value was obvious, but the disruption factor during class time made them problematic for learning environments where focus and attention were priorities. The novelty factor never completely wore off. Even children who owned multiple pairs continued finding new ways to use them for entertainment, demonstrating sustained play value rarely achieved by conventional candy products. The psychology behind wax lips revealed fascinating insights into childhood development and the desire for transformation that characterized adolescent social experiences. Wearing them provided instant personality modification that allowed introverted children to experiment with extroverted behaviors without the social risks associated with permanent character changes. The exaggerated size and bright color created an obvious costume element that signaled playfulness to observers, giving wearers permission to act differently than their normal personalities might dictate. This temporary transformation aspect made wax lips valuable tools for childhood social experimentation, allowing kids to test different versions of themselves in safe, clearly defined play contexts. The physical comedy element was undeniable. The oversized lips created visual absurdity that guaranteed laughter and attention, providing shy children with reliable methods for gaining positive social recognition without requiring wit, athletic ability, or other talents that might be beyond their developmental reach. The manufacturing process behind wax lips was surprisingly sophisticated, requiring precise temperature control and timing to create products that maintained their shape in various climates while remaining safe for oral contact. The wax needed to be firm enough to hold the lip shape during normal handling and storage, but soft enough that children could chew it without dental damage or jaw strain. Food-grade coloring had to be distributed evenly throughout the wax to maintain the bright red appearance that made them instantly recognizable, while flavoring agents needed to provide some taste satisfaction without being so appealing that children would attempt to swallow large quantities of wax. Quality control became crucial because defective wax lips could crack, creating sharp edges that posed injury risks, or become too soft in warm conditions, losing their shape and entertainment value. The cultural impact of wax lips extended far beyond their intended demographic, becoming symbols of 1970s childhood that represented an era when toy safety standards were less restrictive and parents allowed children greater freedom to experiment with potentially questionable products. Photography from the decade shows countless birthday parties, school events, and family gatherings featuring children wearing wax lips, creating visual documentation of a time when novelty items could dominate childhood social interactions. The absurd appearance made them natural props for amateur photography, encouraging creative experimentation with visual humor that helped develop artistic sensibilities in children who might otherwise have limited exposure to performance and visual arts. Many adults who grew up during this period remember wax lips as gateway experiences that introduced them to costume play, theatrical expression, and the joy of deliberately creating silly appearances for entertainment purposes. candy necklaces. What happened to the edible jewelry that made every child feel fashionable while providing convenient snacking throughout the day? These elastic strings of small, round candies could be worn as actual necklaces, creating functional accessories that doubled as readily available treats whenever hunger struck. The individual candy pieces were small enough to bite off easily without breaking the string, allowing for gradual consumption that could last hours or even days depending on self-control. The colors were bright and varied, creating visually appealing jewelry that actually looked attractive when worn, demonstrating that candy could successfully bridge fashion and food in ways that satisfied both aesthetic and appetite needs. Kids learned valuable lessons about rationing and self-control through candy necklaces, as eating them too quickly eliminated the fashion accessory while saving them maintained both style and future snacking opportunities. The elastic construction was engineered to withstand normal wear while remaining easy enough to break when accessing candy became necessary, showing sophisticated design thinking disguised as simple novelty. Parents appreciated that the necklace format made it impossible to lose or misplace candy, while the portion control built into the design prevented overconsumption that characterized loose candy experiences. The social aspect was significant. Kids would compare necklace colors, trade individual pieces, and create elaborate fashion shows featuring their edible accessories, turning candy consumption into group activities. Teachers generally tolerated them because they were quiet to consume and didn't create classroom disruption, though some worried about the hygiene implications of children wearing food around their necks. The dual functionality represented innovative thinking in candy design, proving that treats could serve multiple purposes while maintaining their core sweetness. Satisfaction that made candy appealing in the first place. The engineering behind candy necklaces was more sophisticated than their simple appearance suggested, requiring careful consideration of elastic tension, candy adhesion, and durability under various wearing conditions. The string needed to be strong enough to support the weight of multiple candy pieces without breaking during normal childhood activities, yet weak enough that individual candies could be removed without requiring tools or adult assistance. The candy pieces themselves had to be manufactured with consistent hole sizes that allowed proper threading while maintaining structural integrity during the stringing process. Quality control became essential because improperly sized holes could create weak points that led to catastrophic necklace failure, spilling dozens of candy pieces across classroom floors or playground surfaces where they would be lost forever. The social dynamics surrounding candy necklaces revealed fascinating insights into childhood economics and resource management that prepared young minds for more complex financial decision-making later in life. Candy buttons. How did tiny dots of candy stuck to paper strips become the perfect training ground for patience and fine motor skill development? Each strip contained dozens of small, colorful candy dots that required careful removal from paper backing, creating interactive candy experiences that combined treat consumption with puzzle-solving activities. The removal process was crucial. Too aggressive and you'd tear the paper, ruining the candy, while too gentle meant never making progress, teaching kids the value of finding perfect pressure balance. The flavors were mild and varied, usually including cherry, lemon, and lime varieties that provided gentle sweetness without overwhelming young palates or creating the intensity associated with more aggressive candy options. What made them educational was the fine motor skill development they encouraged, as successfully removing candy dots required hand-eye coordination and precise finger control that prepared children for more complex manual tasks. Parents appreciated that consumption was naturally slow and controlled, preventing the rapid sugar intake that characterized most other candy experiences while providing extended entertainment value that justified the purchase price. The paper backing was edible but flavorless, though many kids enjoyed chewing it, after removing all the candy dots, creating extended play value that lasted well beyond the actual candy consumption period. Teachers sometimes used them as classroom rewards because they required concentration and provided individual activity that didn't disrupt group learning environments or create social conflict among students. The tiny size of individual dots made sharing easy and natural, encouraging social interaction and generosity among children who could easily divide strips among friends without significant sacrifice. The manufacturing process was visible and interesting to curious kids who wondered how tiny candy dots got perfectly attached to paper strips, creating educational opportunities disguised as simple treat consumption. These 25 candies prove that the 1970s created magic we'll never taste again. Each bite carried childhood dreams that modern candy simply can't replicate. Which one takes you back the most? Share your memories below, because these sweet legends deserve to be remembered by everyone who lived them.